Well, welcome once again to the Heroines Journey podcast. I'm Joan Perry, and I'm so excited today because I have a guest, Cheryl Fischer. And she and I are on the same page. For some reason, we just decided that focusing on midlife for women was really, really important. And I'm here to tell you, I like when I think back about my mother, they didn't talk about midlife as being any different than the rest of life, or there are any special considerations or maybe changes that you wanted to make in your life. So I just really appreciate that the heroine's journey, first of all, draws attention to that. And Cheryl in her work draws attention to that too. So we're going to open a big discussion, one that I'm very much in favor of women having. And the reason I'm very much in favor of it is that, you know, women are just at their best midlife. And so many of us get talked into the fact that, that life is kind of over for us at that point. And I so don't agree with that. We have wisdom and experience and knowledge and, so much. Plus, I think it can be some of the most fun times of your life. For me, I got to write the Heroine's Journey book, which is legacy work for me. So, I got to pass out of that time when I had to work for somebody else and do just what they said, and now into a space where I can actually be my own creative, and I like to call it authentic self. So, I think we collaborate on a lot of those issues. So, first of all, welcome, Cheryl, so much to the Heroine's Journey podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And I love it. Rather than me telling about you, how about if you tell about you? Because you'll highlight the points that, and one of my questions in that is, how did you come to decide that focusing on women midlife was a good place to be?
Great. Yeah, I always love answering this question and have to rein myself in before I tell you my entire life story. But let's see if we can make it a nice little summary. So I am a podcast host, so we are quite similar, of Mind Your Midlife podcast and a life coach. And if you had asked me 5 years ago or so, if that's what I would be doing, I think I would have laughed. It just was not even in my consciousness at all. And how I got to where I am now is really that I have had a few different careers, always revolving around mentoring, training, teaching. And for a long time, I was actually a high school teacher, but burnout hits hard when you're a teacher. I always say I have such a, hmm?
You developed great courage and patience and
Yeah.
determination being there.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Teachers love you. I did that for 12 years and I knew that I couldn't do it for 20 some more. I just was always thinking, what else could I do? Where am I going to go? And I tried my own business on the side. And that, even though I don't really do that anymore, that changed everything because that's when I realized all this personal development stuff that I was kind of poo-pooing was really important.
Right.
Yeah, and the words I was speaking were important, and the thoughts I was thinking were important, and all of it was a big deal. And once I learned that, everything changed, and I realized there's a lot of women out there who don't know this and who would benefit so much. So that's kind of the short version of how I got here.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And what would you say, just, in a couple of quick sentences, what it was that you learned that turned you on a dime? And then we'll dive into a few of them.
I learned that the thoughts in our heads, and I'm sort of laughing at myself as I say this because to me it's so obvious now, but the thoughts in our heads are what direct our emotions, are what direct how we interact with the world, or what affect the results of what we get. It's all coming from inside our heads, and some of it we have conscious control over, some of it is habit patterns, but I just I just did not understand the power of our thoughts before at all, and the fact that we can change that.
So, in other words, when you say to yourself, I'm fat,
Right.
that's
Exactly.
probably not a good idea.
Yeah. And
And
and one
and you know
yes,
what?
and
And on in my I have a delete key. And when I hear myself say those crazy things, I'm like, delete.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things we do that I think sometimes we don't catch as quickly is we ask ourselves questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or, why am I always having this problem?
Uh-huh.
Well, then your brain's going to try to find the answer, and that's not a question you want the answer to.
No, no. So what happened in your own personal life? They gave you a heads up on all of this.
It was it was a conversation I had with my husband actually, and I remember it to this day. And I was asking him if he remembered, and he was like, vaguely, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But I was standing in our kitchen, and it was the end of a day, and I was telling him about my business that I had started and how it was going. And he said to me, you don't have to keep doing it if you don't like it. And I
Hmm.
said, why do you say that? And he said, well, all you do is complain about it. That's
Oh.
all you do. And I had no idea that that's what I was saying. And it's
Hmm.
funny to think that you could not realize that that's what you were doing, but I had no idea that all I was doing was complaining, or that's how he heard it. And
Uh-huh.
it was such a wake-up call because venting, sure, can be healthy, but if we're always
Uh-huh.
just speaking about the negative and this is a problem and that's a problem and I don't understand why this and then our brains are hearing that and it's kind of a double whammy. So that was
Because you're
definitely the moment.
because you're setting the stage in your head for the play that's going on around you.
Yeah.
Because it's all about interpretation. Like
Yes.
something you can happen and you go, oh, that was horrible, it's terrible, I hate it. Or something that can happen and you can go, what's the gift in this? What am I
Yes.
supposed to get out of this? And sometimes it's hard for me to do that, but I've learned that life works for me and not against me.
Mm, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that people say to me when I talk to them about shifting, how you speak and how you think is, well, if it's a hard thing, I can't just say to myself, be happy, it's okay. And of course not. Sometimes it's hard and we
Right.
need to feel that, right? But when we can, understanding that trying to shift it even gradually is powerful still helps.
So what did you do after he said that?
I, you know what? I remember that scene so vividly. Let me think. What did I do? I think I really took some time and thought, is that really true? And I started listening to myself. And I was teaching at the time, and I'll tell you, again, teachers, it's a hard job. I heard myself in these conversations all the time at work complaining. The copier's broken, the traffic is bad, the kids never do their homework, blah, 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 complaining back and forth. And I started to go, oh, wow, maybe he is right. And there
Yeah.
was a period of time where I feel like I almost wasn't sure how to have a conversation because I started trying to catch myself and not just do this was bad, that was bad thing. And then I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to talk about. So,
That we have to put an underline under that because that's really learning to
yeah,
realize that your whole means of communication was from that point of view. And when you stopped it because you decided to stop it,
yeah.
then what do you talk about? And
And yeah, legitimately, I remember not knowing how to have a conversation and just kind of letting people take the lead for a while because it's so funny to look back now because it's just not how I speak anymore, but I really did not know what to say. Yeah.
so, do you think this is a pattern for women?
I certainly think it's a pattern for some women. I hesitate to say everybody, but I think there is a cultural pattern that we find it very comfortable and easy to talk about the weather, to talk about the traffic, to talk about how hard it was to get up in the morning, to talk about how hard it is to lose the weight. And all of those kind of become, oh, isn't this bad? Isn't that bad? Isn't this bad? Isn't that bad? And we kind of are, we're kind of egging each other on. We're commiserating with each other, but it's not helping anyone.
Not communication.
Right.
And I would say another factor that plays into that is that, you know, it's very easy to see ourselves as victims in this world because we're told by the magazines we're too fat, or we're told by the credit card companies that we should have balances on our credit card. In other words, as women, quite practically, we are victimized in society. It's
Yeah.
only being a heroine and deciding that is not your place that you're going to stand in. And you're talking about the communication around that. I'm not standing in that place. I'm
Yeah.
standing in a place where I see myself as the heroine, not the victim. And what you're suggesting is then you have to change your conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you'll break yourself right back down. If you make the decision, I like to say I'm the main character in my story.
Yes.
Similar thing. I'm going for it. And then all the junk is still in there about "Oh, this is hard and that's hard. And, you pull yourself right back.
And can I be honest? Which is to say straight up to all the listeners, I don't want friends who do that.
Hmm.
I want friends who talk to me, who tell me where they're going, what they're doing, how they're becoming. I don't want to listen to a constant barrage of complaint.
Right.
I
Right.
don't.
Right. Right. And I really try to be careful talking about this because there is a time and a place for saying, "Hey,
I
I
need some
just
help.
need to get something off my off my chest, you know? I just have to vent about this." But as long that's okay, it just needs to be an isolated thing that is helping you emotionally to get it out. And then that if it's not a habit, then okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what you're talking about is repetitive
Hmm.
dialogue, which is just your brain spinning and
Yeah.
spinning and spinning. And I think half the time when you're talking in that format, you don't even hear yourself talking. Like you
Right.
did, your husband said, and you're like, what? I don't
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I ended up staying with that business for a while after that and really shifting my attitude about it, and that is the reason I am here today because when you become an entrepreneur in any form,
Mm-hmm,
author, business owner, whatever, you realize you have to make goals and you have to get yourself excited about these goals and you have to do it even on the days when you don't want to. And all of that was just brand new to me. So
mm-hmm.
I had to make some big changes in the way I thought about it for sure.
And how did you motivate yourself to do that?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. It was always, for me, I think it was always knowing that I didn't want to go backwards. And
Mm-hmm,
I don't know that that would work for everyone because that's a little bit of maybe being motivated by the pain as opposed to the reward. But I I knew that in life I just don't like to go backwards. In fact, we moved to a different neighborhood and my husband was saying, "Why don't we live in this one area?" And I said, "That feels like where we used to live. I don't want to go backwards. It's a thing for me. I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forward."
uh-huh,
And so as long as I was making some progress, I was happy.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Because what I hear you saying is that you developed a new image for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you said, I might have been that, but I'm this now. And the way
Exactly.
this shows up is different than the way that showed up.
Yes.
So I better
Yes.
kind of tweak so that I can show up differently.
Yes. Absolutely. And I'll ask people this, and people would ask me this, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? And I find that a lot of times women struggle with that question
Uh-huh.
because we don't sit down and think about where we see ourselves in 5 years or 10 years. So, I had a vague idea of that, but I would have been wrong anyway. I'm in a different place than I would have imagined, but maybe that's still good training for trying to create this new image of ourselves in some way.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm entirely different now than I was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I thought of myself in one way. And I also thought that if that vision got broken, something happened that blew up that vision, that I somehow no longer was. But
Mm,
what I now realize is that there's no way I would ever change that vision not being changed because today I'm a fuller version of myself.
yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you asked me at the beginning, how did I end up working with midlife women? Well, first of all, I'm in my 50s, so that's part of it, I'm sure.
Right.
But
Uh-huh.
also, this period of time, I think, is one of those periods of time, maybe you could say the 20s, depending on what you're doing in your 20s, that has so much change happening, so
Uh-huh.
many shifts, so many changes in responsibility with our parents, our kids, our jobs, retirement, our bodies, everything is changing.
Yes.
And the power of using mindset to help us get through that, I think really can be a life changer. So,
Hmm. So as you went through all that, tell me two or three or four principles that you really want women to know about that time and what works.
yeah.
Because we mentioned some things that don't work.
Yes, excellent point. Excellent point. There's so many different habits that we can start, but I always shy away from that a little bit because I don't want anyone to feel like I'm telling you that you have to add 16 habits to your day. We don't have time for that.
No.
I would say maybe it's kind of two things in particular. Number one, I don't want us to be afraid of our feelings, and I want us to be able to name them and then figure out what's going on in our thoughts and our minds creating those feelings. Because
So
I've,
if you could stop right there for a minute.
yeah,
So when you had so much negative talk and your whole conversation was built on negativity, what were the feelings inside of you?
I would say part of it was just habit, but part of it was uncertainty or fear of uncertainty. And so, kind of making myself smaller in a way to
Yeah.
keep it safe.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Uh-huh.
So, I've noticed that even though you may not know how to make it better, if you can identify how you're feeling, and most of the time we don't really know how to do that without some practice,
Hmm.
and then you can kind of pause and say, oh, why am I feeling so stressed right now? What is going on in my head? And if we take a minute, we can usually find something that's running around in there about, I'm stressed about this, or why didn't she do that, or I don't know how I'm ever going to do this, or and we can kind of question it. Is that
Hmm.
true?
Hmm.
And sometimes it's an easy shift to realize, woof, that's just a bunch of garbage. I don't need to be worrying about that. And sometimes it's not so easy, but the
I
recognizing is powerful.
I ask myself when I get those moments, does this serve me?
Hmm.
And often I get back, you're wasting your energy.
Yeah.
Like, why is this important?
Yeah.
No, it's really not serving me to be more joyful, happier, more prosperous, feel like I have more freedom. It's not. So then I get to do a reframe in my brain and say,
Yeah.
okay, well, if it doesn't, what would? And often it's as simple as walk away or
Hmm.
drop that thought
Yes.
or focus on something else.
Yes.
It's not really that complicated a lot of times, at least for me.
Yes. I would
Uh,
agree with that. And there are, of course, difficult situations that might be much tougher, but in the everyday little moments, we can shift it so much easier than we think.
and even when I went through the huge difficulties that I did on my heroine's journey, you know, there were moments when I said, this isn't a disaster. it's a gift. Now, did
Mhm.
I fully believe it in that moment? Ah, maybe sometimes not, I'll admit. But if I just said to my brain it's a gift, then my brain got curious and it said, well, what could be good about this? Or, in other words, it pointed me to better
Yes.
questions.
Yes, exactly what we were talking about before. Yes, your brain wants to give you the answer, so you have to be careful what you ask it. That's
Be
very, very
very
true.
careful what you ask your brain. Very careful. Uh-huh.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing that I learned, and it has made such a difference for me, and I help my clients with this, is to take a moment regularly, ideally every day, but regularly, and think about what you've achieved and kind of mini celebrate yourself or think about something you're grateful for. And I know that grateful for, everybody's talking about that, but celebrating ourselves is not something that we do very often. And if we could say, wow, like yesterday, I had so much going on and I had such a productive day. And at the end of the day, I was thinking, I had a
Uh,
productive day. Good for
yes.
me.
Uh-huh.
If we did more of that, it makes a
Uh-huh.
huge difference as well.
You know, when I went through so much and I couldn't see my way through, I had a brilliant therapist. And she said, I want you to do something, Joan. I said, what's that? She said, I want you to go home. I'd written a book by that point. And she said, I want you to go home and get a box of the books and put them everywhere in your house. Put them on the mantle, put them on your dresser, put it in the bathroom. And she said, and then I want you to get any other momentum of something that was an achievement for you.
Yeah.
So I did it and redecorated my house in the process, you know, and then was like, oh my, you know, while I feel at the bottom of the barrel right now, the truth is that's only a momentary thought. And life is never, your existence is not at the bottom of the barrel. It
Right.
goes up and down. That's the way life goes. And
Yes.
so she was inviting me to remember those times. And
Yes.
again, once I remembered it and I looked at it and like you, and I thought, oh my gosh, I did that.
Yes.
All of a sudden, what was going on in my head had a chance to change.
100% agree. I love that. There's actually a book called The Gap in the Gain. I can't think of the author right now, but that talks about this. And
Hmm.
it makes such a difference. And I once had a conversation with a friend of mine when I was thinking about becoming a coach. She said to me, "Oh, you'd be great at that." And I said, "What? What tells you I'd be great at that?" And she said, "But you have so much experience." And I said, "What experience?" And she said, life experience. Nobody
Uh-huh.
gets to midlife without amazing things that they've done in their life. And I just
Yeah.
always kind of hold on to that because I
Yeah.
love that attitude.
That's why I'm so pro women at this age or in
Yeah.
midlife or however we define that. You have some tools in your chest,
Hmm.
you know? And so for women to suddenly fall off the cliff at that point, think that they're defeated, you know, because a divorce sent them rocking, or think that they don't have something to offer because their job said we don't need you anymore, or think that they can't invent a new business or whatever. You
Right.
know, that's where I want to be a cheerleader
Right.
because the unhidden, unspoken knowledge, gift, you know, treasure in our world is women at this stage.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And somehow, sometimes we just sell ourselves short. I don't care what you've done with your life. If you hit your late 40s, your 50s, your 60s, you have done some cool stuff. And if you
Yes,
really think about it, you'll find it.
yes, exactly. Exactly. Even in the midst of defeat,
Absolutely.
even in the midst of it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, is that what you want to tell women?
Yeah. I mean, I maybe the overarching theme is that we are very hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's a woman thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we think in a lot of cases that being hard on ourselves is going to motivate us to be even better.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's That's a nice reason, and nothing wrong with that reason, but it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
And I mean, if you think of an example at work, when your boss is always hard on you because your boss wants you to do better, that doesn't work. You know that doesn't work. But we
No.
do it to ourselves throughout life. And I mean, I'm guilty of it, and I still am, even though I know these things. We just do it sometimes. And
Mhm.
during this period where your body might be changing, as you said, relationships and jobs and everything might be changing, being hard on yourself is only making it worse.
Mhm.
And finding something to celebrate, like we just talked about, or recognizing the head trash and questioning it a little bit
Mhm.
can change everything.
Yeah. Some compassion and kindness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. I don't think we're taught that. You
I
know,
agree.
I'll tell you a terrible story. And that's one time I said to my father, "Could you just say something nice about me?" And he
Ooh.
said to me, "That's not my job. My job is to point out what you're not doing right."
Huh.
And I
Interesting.
do think that there is a cultural perspective around women that very much
Yeah.
promotes that point of view. And I think we take it one step further and say, you know, I always need to fix myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you don't need to fix yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're just fine the way you are, and that negative talk doesn't help you a bit. And if
Maybe
you
you need to trust yourself.
exactly, yeah, 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 have faith in yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
love yourself.
Yeah.
And what you're pointing out is it starts with all that mind chatter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a small thing that if you learn how to start catching it and recognizing it and shifting it, it builds and it builds and it builds.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Uh huh. And I would say just what you're saying, which is that it's taken practice on my part.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
Yes, we do have to be patient with ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, it's taken practice because I think the culture, I think schools, I think employers, I think fathers, like I just demonstrated, we're taught the opposite. You know, who says you're a perfect being? I didn't hear that from anybody,
No,
you know.
heavens no.
But if you don't start with I'm a perfect being with yourself, and I'm obviously not talking about ego, I'm talking about, you were made perfectly.
Right.
And yet, this brain that wants to protect me all the time from something that might happen is
Right.
continually speaking to me about lions, tigers, and bears that could jump out and get in my path.
That's right. Yes, modern life is not filled with danger the way our brains are still programmed to think that it is. Yes.
Isn't that the truth? The
Yeah.
monkeys are not swinging from the trees, but sometimes they're swinging in my head.
Yes. 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 Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes. If we just realized that being kind to ourselves, and we'll add in everyone else,
Yes,
but
exactly. Uh-huh.
is as powerful as it is, I think everybody would be just motivated to change, the way they're thinking, the way they're speaking, the way they're acting.
Uh-huh.
It's crazy how powerful it is.
Yes. So what are you doing every day now? Are you teaching, writing, coaching?
Coaching as a life coach. And right now the podcast is the other main thing that I'm doing. I do speak and teach at events occasionally.
Uh-huh.
So and then this summer I'm starting a Patreon with some additional coaching resources for people. So it's growing gradually. I'm
What's a
figuring it out.
Patreon?
Hmm?
What's a Patreon?
So Patreon is a website, kind of like Substack, where people can subscribe and they get extra resources and they for a monthly fee. I'm doing a little free launch this summer.
Uh-huh. Nice. Very
Mhm.
nice. And tell us what you like to cover on your podcast and where to find it.
Absolutely. So Mind Your Midlife is at mindyourmidlifepodcast.com, but also on all major podcast apps. And it's all about realizing that we are powerful women in midlife, and it doesn't take an entire revamp of ourselves that's difficult and hard. It just takes a shift of perspective and a shift of mindset, and that can change how we look at our bodies, how we look at our relationships, how we look at our health, and those things are powerful changes. So that's the idea.
Hmm. And I'm going to be a guest on your podcast.
Yes, you are.
So I'm looking forward to that because I have some good ideas about that.
I do. I'm excited for that conversation. Yes.
Uh-huh. So, what was a critical moment in your life? Tell us a little bit more about your kind of the inner self of you that has caused you to feel strongly and because what I hear in you is that this is a passion work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what is so true for me and the heroine's journey is it's passion work for me. I'm no longer working because I need to work or have to work or any of that. I'm working because I want women to live great lives.
Yes.
So, and we'll talk more as we talk further about that was in me. But what would you say that was for you?
I don't know if I can say one moment, but it was the realization that I was often making myself small. And what that looked like for me was staying inside the lines in terms of doing what I was told to do in my jobs and
Uh-huh.
doing it well, but just kind of staying in my lane and maybe speaking in a way that allowed me to commiserate with the things that hadn't happened versus take big leaps towards things that might feel scary. There were
Uh-huh.
just a lot of behaviors that I had, which come from thoughts that I had that were, I was staying small in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ways. And when I realized that, I started, as we've been talking about, changing it a little bit here and there, a little bit here and there, a little bit here and there. And now, I mean, what I'm doing now doesn't look like anything I would have imagined 10 years ago at all. I wouldn't have even, I think I said at the beginning, I would have laughed if you told me, oh, you're going to be a podcast host and a life
Yeah.
coach. I would have thought, that's insane, or you must be crazy. So it was starting to catch myself, keeping myself small and realizing it was okay to say what I think or to go a little bit bigger or to try something new. And I was going to be okay and maybe great at that.
Yeah. And when you get to midlife, you start to say, how much more time do I have at this? So
Yes.
why am
Yes,
I
you do.
playing games?
Yes.
Why don't I just accept that I'm fearful and go on? Why don't I dream bigger than, like that thing about if you aim for the heavens and you land on a star? That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't I take a chance?
Yeah.
Why don't I
Yeah.
venture? Why don't I take this time to really see, is there more here than I thought there was?
Yeah.
Can I do
Yeah.
things I didn't think I could do?
Absolutely.
You know?
And sometimes it maybe seems counterproductive, but sometimes it's worth asking ourselves, well, what's the worst that could happen?
Yes.
Because that might not even be so bad. Why
Yeah,
not try?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, writing a book was a scary proposition. And then you know what I discovered? I loved it. I found
Ah,
out I love to write. And I never would have guessed that.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had to figure out a way to start.
Uh-huh. That's on my list at some point too. So
Well,
that's interesting that you say that.
well, when you want a few lessons on how to do it, I'm happy to help you.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And now I'm into my third book and thinking about the fourth one. So,
That's
and then I
amazing.
asked myself, how many will I write? I don't know
Keep
the
going. Why not?
I don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it's a big project, but I love it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what so because what I hear you say, and I'm going to be honest, is I hear you say that you're at this point of living into your passion And you're also asking yourself, how do I fully do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that happens at midlife when you
Yeah.
start to say, okay, I don't have to do security and safety any longer. Now I can kind of say, who am I? What is my authenticity? But then you say to yourself, well, I'd like to do something I'm passionate about, but how do I do that?
Yes. And that's a scary question.
Yeah, but you start down that road and you say, I really do want to express what is my gift.
Yes.
And because I can tell you, feeling like I'm there now, that I live my passion. The heroine's journey is my passion. I've named
Yeah.
it. I'm working around it, you know? But to get to that point in your life where you're really doing what you feel passionate about, like a friend of mine who I'm actually doing a live event in another couple of months, and the woman that I'm doing the event with is now in training for end of life, and
Wow.
she's working in a hospice because she has a passion, as this is something that she wanted to not only know more about but also help with.
Yeah.
And I really
Gosh. Yeah.
I really admire her for that. It's not me.
Agree.
It's not my particular mission or passion or where I live in that space. But kudos to her that
Yes.
she's going this far.
Oh my goodness. I fully, fully agree. People who work in that field, thank you. You're amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. You're amazing, and we need you.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many areas in life and life, but I think one of the big, I'm going to just call it a conundrum about midlife, is that you're called to say, what am I passionate about?
Mm-hmm.
Where am I going to put my efforts?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to be? And as you're pointing out, you have to change self-talk in your head to get there. You have to
Yes.
change the I can't do that, or I'm too fearful, or all that kind of stuff. But going forward on that path and living fully in your passion, which is, I see what you're, that's what you're asking yourself right now. What is that?
Absolutely.
What is that? How do I
Yeah.
do it?
And it can be a scary question. And I think that is what kind of catches people on this sometimes. Okay, now I'm in my 50s and I have more time. So what do I want to do? And sometimes that question feels maybe too big, is the way I would say it. I could do this, I could do that. How do I decide? I don't know. I could do this, that. And so try something is
Yeah,
usually the right answer.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you don't like it, then don't do it anymore. Try something else. I
yes,
mean,
because
yeah,
you have the freedom now to say, okay, no, okay, no,
right.
and you are meant to blossom into your passion. So don't think you didn't come here with one, because you did.
Absolutely.
It's more
Yes.
we try to avoid it than it's not there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just going forth in that.
One of my favorite podcast interviews that I did, gosh, back in the first year of my podcast, which wasn't even called Mind Your Midlife then, but I talked with a woman about using fun in your life. And what she meant was look at what you do day to day, your job or whatever it is, and find the things that are fun or things, maybe that's too much of a stretch in your job, but the things that you're enthusiastic about
Hmm.
and follow those, do more of those.
Yeah.
And everybody can do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed our discussion today. It's been
Yes.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Cheryl,
I have too.
thank you so much for being with us. Tell us where people can find you.
So CherylPFisher.com is my website or mindyourmidlifepodcast.com. Either one works. And I'm Cheryl P. Fisher on all the socials, so anyone can find me there, particularly Instagram. That would be great.
Hmm. Well, thanks so much for joining you.
Thanks for having me.